and welcome. We are going to be looking at the kinds of food that were available during 1945. We thought that it might be a fun project to step back in time and see what would have been going on 80 years ago towards the end of World War II in terms of food. So we're not going to be living exactly like the people from the time. We're just going to be focusing on the food that they had available, and throughout the next 7 days we're going to be trying out some different recipes and seeing what it's actually like to live as a family of 4 on the rations that are available. So it's going to be myself, my husband and my 2 children which are going to be joining in with this. So we're going to have hopefully some great fun and learn a lot about food during 1945. So, as you may be aware, during 1945, food was rationed. So during the First World War, there were massive shortages of food and people weren't getting enough. So it was decided by the government that they would implement rationing, so making sure that every single person got their fair share and that nobody was going to be left hungry, so everybody could work together with the war. So they actually made ration books and had them all ready to go before the war even started in 1939, and rationing would actually continue until 1954, a massive amount of time after the end of the Second World War. So stepping back into 1945, one of the most important things that we are going to need are our ration books. So here we have our ration book. Each person in the family has their own ration book. So there's 4 of us in our family, so we have 4 ration books. So first of all, the adult ration books are this kind of brown colour. So children aged 5 and over would be entitled to a blue ration book, and then we have this rather fetching green colour, which is for children under 5. Both of my children are under 5, so they have the green ration book. The green ration book was, as I said, for children under 5, but also for pregnant women, nursing mothers, and what they would have called in the 1940s invalids, so people who have not been well and are recovering. I am still actually nursing my youngest daughter. However, despite all the research, I couldn't find anything anywhere about what age your child would be when you would stop getting the green book as a mother and instead get the brown book. So I made the executive decision, because my daughter is over a year old now, that I would go onto the normal adult brown book, rather than the green book, which in the green book you get some extra things which I will talk about in a moment. So how does the rationing work? So once you have your ration book, you need to take this and you need to register with a particular shop, or a few different shops. So supermarkets were not in existence. They were not a thing during the 1940s. So you would have to register with lots of different shops. So you would register with a butcher, with a baker, or a grocer shop. And for your weekly ration, that was the only place that you could go to get your food. And the reason for this is because once you were signed up, then the shopkeeper would be sent the right amount of ration for all of the people that were registered for his shop. So if you were to go to different shops, there wouldn't necessarily be enough food. So travelling around wasn't, for the general population, wasn't so much of a thing. So you would have to make sure that you were going to the shop that you were registered at. Once you've gone to the shop, then you would hand over your ration book and they would turn to the correct page, and as you would see here, there are all different numbered stamps. They would either snip or just scribble off to say that you've got your ration, and then you can take that with you. So food was not free. As well as having your ration book and getting your allocated ration, you still had to buy the food. But food certainly on the weekly ration, the price was controlled by the government, so you didn't have any worry about the prices rocketing, so that you wouldn't be able to afford the food if you were poorer. Everybody was entitled to the same. So the first thing I'm going to talk about on the ration is butter. So this is our weekly ration for the 4 of us for butter. It's 6 ounces of butter, which is here, which is not a lot, I don't think. We, as a family, we eat quite a lot of butter. My husband especially really likes it. And we put it on all our bread, we use it for cooking. So having this amount for a week is not very much. So I think we might struggle as a family with that one. To, I guess, compensate for the fact that butter is not very much, you also have a ration of margarine. As you can see, the amount of margarine that you have far exceeds the amount of butter. It's actually double the quantity, so this is 12 ounces. We don't really use margarine at the moment, but I think we were going to end up using this for baking and maybe even on our sandwiches and things instead of butter. Then we have lard. Again, I don't really use lard for anything in a modern life, but this is, I think we're going to be using this for lots of cooking and perhaps some baking. Again, it's 12 ounces, so the same amount as the butter for the 4 of us. Next, we have cheese. So again, I think this is the one that I'm going to struggle with a little bit. The children especially absolutely love cheese. This is 6 ounces of cheese to last the 4 of us the entire week, which usually we would get through a lot more cheese than this in a week. So we will see how we go with that. Then we're moving on to sugar. So this is actually 12 ounces of sugar in the bowl. We are actually entitled to double this, but I have never used this much sugar in a week, I don't think. So we will see. We can measure out the other 12 ounces later in the week if we need to, but yeah, so that's a lot of sugar available, I think, for one family. Then jam. Jam was on the ration as well. Jam was one of the things that was rationed. We were entitled to £1 every 2 months. So there was one thing that wasn't like every week, I guess because it comes in a jar perhaps, but £1 every 2 months per adult. So I have then calculated, because we're going to be doing this for 7 days, I've calculated and worked out how much that would work out as. And so this is our weekly ration for the 4 of us of jam for 7 days. Then I've got some milk. An adult would be entitled to 3 pints of milk in a week, which I don't think is that unreasonable, but then because they're drinking a lot of tea, perhaps they would be getting through it quite quickly. However, under 5s are entitled to 1 pint of milk per day, which means that as a family, we're actually entitled to 20 pints of milk in a week. I can't see us using that much, but perhaps if I start giving the children milk to drink with their dinners and things, then maybe we will get through it a bit faster. I think that the thinking behind this was that milk is quite important for children's growth, so they were trying to encourage the children to stay healthy by making sure that there was a plentiful supply of milk for children. The other thing that is different for adults and children is eggs. So here we have 6 eggs. Adults are entitled to 1 egg each per week, which is not a massive amount, but actually the under 5s, the 2 children, are entitled to 2 eggs each per week. So we have got 6 eggs as a family. So then tea was a very, very important part of British life during the 1940s. And I think there possibly would have been an uprising if people didn't have their cup of tea. So tea was included as part of the weekly ration. I'm just checking the amount. So we were entitled to 2 ounces per adult per week. So this is one thing, the children or the under 5s were not entitled to any, no tea for them, and older children would be entitled to 1 ounce. But so here we have 4 ounces of tea for us for the week. I never ever drink tea at the moment, but maybe I will give it a go for this week. And I'm sure you can notice that they're not tea bags. This is loose leaf tea. This is how people would have had their tea during the 1940s. So no tea bags available in England during that time. So then every person is entitled to some bacon or ham as part of the ration, and I've got my packs of bacon, my packs of ham here. We are entitled to 4 ounces each per week of the ham, and that is the same for adults and for children. It was decided fairly early on in the war that it was important for children to get the full ration of meat to ensure that they were growing and that they were healthy, the same as the adults. So everybody was entitled to the same meat ration no matter what age they were. And so then, as well as the bacon or ham ration, you were entitled to another type of meat ration. This, I think, is the most complicated part of the weekly ration available, because it's the only thing that is calculated by money rather than by weight. So everything else, I've said so many ounces, a pound or whatever like that, but the meat was that you were actually entitled to 1 shilling and 2 pence worth of meat. So that was really difficult for me to research and calculate and work out exactly how much meat we were entitled to as a family, because it very much depends on how expensive the cut of meat was. So I bought some beef steaks, which is for us to have. It's not a massive amount of meat, so I think we're going to be having a lot of what we would call vegetarian meals, so vegetable-based meals. So I think the reason probably for using the price to work out the ration is because if you buy some steak compared to if you buy some cheap sausage meat, which is bulked out with other things, the quality of the meat and therefore the price is going to be very different. So you could buy a small amount of steak, or you could buy a lot of the sausage meat, and I guess it depends on the priority of what you're wanting for that week. So that is the general ration. So apart from that, everybody loves a sweet treat, and everybody needs a treat every now and again. So sweets and chocolate were actually on the ration, the weekly ration, when they were available to use. So adults were entitled to 12 ounces every 4 weeks of sweets or chocolate, which works out as about 3 ounces per week. So here I have a replica bar of 1940s chocolate, which is a fairly small bar, something that I could very, very easily eat to myself in one evening. And this is actually our weekly ration for 2 of us, for myself and Stephen. Chocolate was not always available, so it would be only if you were very lucky and you were able to get it. So, but I've allocated us a bar of chocolate for the week. So for the children, they were entitled to slightly less of a sweet ration. So they were entitled to 1.5 ounces of sweets per week, which I've got their sweet ration here. It works out as, I would say, probably less than a portion of what I would eat normally. And that's got to last them for the entire week. So we will see how they feel about that when I tell them that this is it, this is all you've got for the entire week. So as well as your complete weekly ration, we also have items that are on points rationing. So how the points rationing works is like this was done on a monthly basis rather than a weekly basis, and every person in the family was allocated a certain number of points, which could be then spent on whatever food items you liked that were on the points ration list. The cost in points of the items would change every single week, and also what was available. So sometimes things weren't available one week that would be the next, and things like that. And this would be published in the newspaper every single week, what the price was going to be for the following week. So the housewives would be having a look in the paper, eagerly looking to see if something that they wanted for their household had reduced in price, so that they could go and spend some of the points on the items that they had available. I will be talking about the points rationing system a little bit more later in the week as we progress on our rationing journey. But this is the basic weekly ration, and very, very excited to see what the week brings and see how our family handles living like a family in 1945.